Thank you for the invitation, and thank you as well for tuning into my talk. Looking at today's online realities, it seems easy to get increasingly unhappy with our digital tools and communities. When thinking about the online sphere, separation, othering, and negativity are circulated widespread, and the advertising-driven business models of our exchange spaces are thriving on separation and escalation, fueling the online divides, like was pointed out by Jaron Lanier and others a while ago. At the same time, when looking forward to the future, it sometimes makes sense to look into the slightly hidden spaces of our digital heritage, as there have been communities thriving which build a different experience than the story of growing digital divides and separation. In that sense, I'm very happy to present at this conference the story of the Demoscene with you, which sheds some other perspectives on digital communities. My version on the scene and about the scene, speaking on behalf of Digitale Kultur, is one version of the story. As it's a decentral scene, there is as many stories and perspectives in the scene as there are members. So I will focus out of an abundance of topics around the scene on three core topics: the community, the competition, and identity in the scene. Speaking about the identity, who am I? I'm a Demoscene since the early 90s, spending my work life as conference director for game developer conference around the world. Doing that for the last decade, and this is really directly related to my background in the demo scene, as many demo makers or people supporting the community went into game development and other digital communities, and the other way around. As well, more specifically, 2 years ago, my colleague Andreas Lange and me started an initiative together, running together with Digitale Kultur e.V., to enlist the demo scene as first digital culture ever onto the UNESCO intangible cultural heritage. We are still on the road for the next years to come, but in Germany and Finland, we had already first successes. And Finland, as first country worldwide, accepted with the demo scene first time a digital culture as part as its national cultural heritage this April. And in many more places, demo scenes are currently making preparations for applications. So let's dive into it. What does the scene? First of all, very simply, it's making demos and other cultural artifacts. It's making graphics, music, sound, all kinds of digital, mostly linear and sometimes interactive, but usually it's always audiovisual technical animations and artifacts. Demos are software generated, and that's super important with music, effects, and sound. And everything you see is usually generated out of a small executable, sometimes some megabytes, sometimes only 4 kilobytes or less. And as I mentioned, the scene is generating an abundance of chiptunes, pixel graphics, text art, and much more. It's always real time and around the community built around the competition, around the file sizes of the demos, creating all the visuals and sound. But where does it come from? It started really in the early 80s with the cracker scene. So people cracked computer games and put their name in front of the cracked games. And the second person said, okay, a name, I can do that as well. Let's put a graphic or a logo in front of it. And then a logo has maybe a text scrolling under it or a new effect cycling after it. And then the next person put a 3D graphic and more and more. And this all led to a competition between the crackers, always adding more and more interesting effects in front of the games until the disk space ran out. And that was actually the moment when the demo scene was born, because people started to release the effects just on their own on complete disks, and that's where the illegal scene of the cracker scene and the demo scene was splitting up. So in this context, the demo scene is special that it's together with the hacker scene and a few other early computer cultures, one of the oldest digital communities still vibrant today. Its main drive really comes from creative output of producing outstanding digital content generated by software, the competition around it, and a community which keeps everything together. Speaking about the three core topics, everything produced in the demo scene is released in competitions on demo scene parties. The community centers really around creating the technical art in a groups-driven, highly collaborative approach, which is getting its fuel from pushing the boundaries of what's deemed possible on digital machines together, or just having fun together, depending on the style and aims of the individuals working together as a group. The general drive is excellence-driven. Elitism can happen, but it's usually dodged via a common interest, as learning is highly valued by everybody, especially if people put in the effort. So usually everybody is open for exchange as soon you ask and are genuinely interested. So the competition is skill-oriented and learning-driven. People strive always to add new effects and technologies or fun for the playful side of the competition. So the competition keeps everybody in action, and many motivational drivers for achieving the next level and not settling are coming from this since a long time. The community, interestingly, all of that competition didn't lead to solipsism and distrust, but an extreme exchange-oriented community coming together regularly for physical events around the globe, but especially in Europe. It's a very democratic process. Since the beginning in the 80s, people have a vote key coming to a Demoscene party. So they have votes in all categories, everybody deciding who's winning a Demoscene competition, and there are numerous ones. It's very inclusive in that sense that everybody who's joining and submitting a graphic, a sound, etc., is welcome. And that's a core topic. And most importantly, speaking about topics, it's topic driven. People are part of the community because they care about the same topic and values. This fact seems to be forgotten often when we talk about online communities today, which are oftentimes it's not much more than random agglomerations of people put in the same space. The Demoscene is decentral, it's non-hierarchical, it's non-commercial, much more can be said about it. We put all of that into the UNESCO applications. Last but not least, the identity. So it's very transnational. So every scene member relates to a common community across the globe. National identity is relevant, but only secondary. I mentioned the non-commercial side. Everything done for the scene has to be done pro bono, as is done by everybody else. And in all of these senses, the scene is part of the proving grounds of a digital society and provides some testing fields. So but also having been part of the proving grounds means that the scene has been part of the challenges of many other tech communities, which were predominantly composed of white guys like myself, and thus entailed the same challenges around the diversity in the 90s especially. We've seen much progress, but there's still a lot of work still to be done. Coming to a close. In today's online spheres, we are often facing maximum polarization, and many proponents of the early digital communities are wondering if our positive assumptions on digital communities in the 90s and 2000s were wrong. But as the Demoscene shows, digital communities and culture can still be fine if the discussions of nowadays are moving culture progressively forward, which are happening in the scene, of course, as well, are using its own self-made tools and platforms for internal communication, and people are coming together for a common interest and aim, which is more importantly. As with all divides and strong opinions within Demoscenes, the scene as a community is still going strong after 30 plus years of non-commercial cultural production. And in that sense, I feel something can be learned from the Demoscene for the future, for the broader context, as tackling the topics of today and tomorrow will need a much more positive competition around creating a better common good for everybody. And this has to be driven by communities of people with flexible mindsets and a learning-focused identity. If we compete in creating the best tools, which are enabling us better to be excellent towards each other online, while navigating change, the future in online communities will be driven by a sense of purpose from the intrinsic motivation of pushing the positive boundaries, I'm sure. Like in a Demoscene, we might be motivated by the community and the competition, as for almost 4 decades, they don't really exclude each other if people come together for common interest and aim. So thank you very much for listening. My name is Tobias Kopka. This is my contact details. I'm at Didax on Twitter and looking forward to your questions. Thank you very much.